Okay, today I'm going to be making a couple of videos, or actually a few, and these are just how to use Roblox Studio, and then in later videos I'm going to teach how to build, or how I build. Um, in this type of thing, there really is no correct way to build, script. Well, actually, scripting does sort of have a correct way, but building and like GFX and all that other stuff, there is no correct way to build. However, there are preferred ways to build. Like 3D modeling, there are preferred techniques and ways that people use to build. Now, I'm not going to talk in an upbeat, excited, overexcited voice like most YouTubers. I'm here to educate, and that's really all I'm here to do. I'm not here to be someone's friend or the viewer's friend or whatever. I'm getting tired of building, and I'm really not in. Right now, I'm having a personal medical problem that I think might end my building thing. Uh, I don't know if I could call it a career or whatnot, but um, so I'm worried about that. But I might as well teach everybody else how I do what I do, and what I do, how I do it, if that makes sense. But bear with me. Okay, so for this first video, I'm going to basically be explaining the Explorer, the properties, and these, um, the best I can, these four tabs up here. So up here we have Home, where you have Select, Move, Scale, Rotate. These are pretty self-explanatory. Select is so you can select an object. Move is so you can move it. Scale is so you can size it up and down, make it bigger, make it smaller. Rotate is so you can rotate it, like basically turn it. Collisions, that's basically what happens when you have collisions on. So like, let's go over here and let's duplicate this part, which I'm right clicking. So I'm going to right click on my mouse, duplicate. And right here, the part duplicates inside the previous part. However, if you go up here and you click collisions and right click again, it'll spawn on top. Me personally, I don't like collisions, and so I don't use that. Now these two here, I don't use constraints, so I'm not going to go over those. I don't want to mislead anyone. This is the terrain editor. Here you can, add in terrain. You can paint it, to whatever you want. And that's pretty much it. And then you can, of course, subtract it and do all that. That's just, yeah, okay. We're making a mess of things. Okay, so yeah, you can mess around with that and so on. Okay, here we have the toolbox. Now, here we have the recommended models. So these models won't have viruses. What we call as viruses in Roblox terms is they're not PC viruses. You don't need to worry about them affecting your PC or making it crash or whatever. What Roblox viruses are is it's basically a, let me see if I can get it. Rig builder, block rig. In here, these little things right here, this little item or block or whatever you want to call it, they basically put a script inside of that, and when people put it into their game, it makes it lag, and so you'll have very laggy movement between players and objects, and everything will run slowly. And so if you're making a game that you intend to publish for everybody to play, it's preferred that you don't have those viruses. And my preferred method of building is from scratch, which I'll also teach you at the end of this video how to make your own building kit. This way you don't really import viruses from free bricks. But anyway, you have the part importer here. Oh, by the way, back to toolbox really quick. So these are the recommended parts, but you can scroll down and you can find any parts. You can find couches, cars, planes, that sort of thing. And here you have images, which here you can see that, well, you have images, which right now are a bunch of faces. Then you have meshes. So free meshes, you can get these, and you just click them to import them. You just click them and they import, and so that's a nice one. Then you go to audio, and you can import audio for your game. I'm not gonna play any of the audios, but you can check. And this little yellow shield badge or whatever, it's basically that it's verified. So they're verified, I guess. I think, yeah, they're verified. So actually, let me go back to models real quick. Yeah, so they would be verified by Roblox themselves to be good. Roblox a while ago had an anti-copyright thing, but most people don't really know what copyright is if they're younger. I'm not saying that younger people are less educated, but I'm saying, well, when I was younger, I didn't really know what copyright was. Anyway, over here we have the part where you can import a block, a sphere, a wedge, or a cylinder. So we'll import a sphere, and you can do whatever you want with this. By the way, if you're wondering how I'm doing this, I pressed F on my keyboard. By default, it's F, and it lets you view the entire object. I'm gonna hit delete on my keyboard. Another way you can do that to delete part is right-clicking, hitting delete, and it's also up here somewhere. I'll show it in a moment. Actually, no, it's not. It's not here. Okay, so up here you have material, so you can make any part like this, like let's say this part. You can make it any material you want. You can make it wood planks, and you can color it to like pink if you want. But me, I'm just gonna hit Control Z on my keyboard, and here we have the lock. Now, basically what a lock does is, so let's go here to select, and you can see right here, it has a little hover thing. I'm hovering right over it, and when I click it, it has a little force field over it, I guess you could say, selection box. However, if we go over to there's the lock tool, and then there's unlock all. The lock tool is basically, if you click this and you go to select, you can't select it. Even when you click and drag to select multiple objects, it won't select it. Now what lock all is that, say you lock multiple parts, like so, but you don't want to go and unlock every single part. So what you would do is you would go over here to unlock all, and let's go to select, and there you go. Now you can select all these. Really quickly, I'm going to lock the base plate because I don't want to, yeah. Okay. So then over here you have play, play here, and run. I'll show those actually in a moment, or actually no, I'll show those in the next video because I'm gonna go over everything I have here in the workspace. Then you have game settings. Here you can set the name, you can set the description, you can set if it's public or it's a friends only or private. You can also select a game icon, screenshots and videos, a genre, and playable devices, so like computer, phone, tablet, console. So you can you have to select at least one. It won't let you select none of them, but this is so like you can decide if you want your game to be playable on a computer, phone, tablet, or console, or if you just want it to be a console game, or if you just want it to be a phone game, etc., etc. Avatar, you can mess around with this. R6 is the old avatar. If you want to know more about this, you can just look it up because I sort of have to move on to the next bits. But this is basically, so if you want to set the face that everybody gets when they spawn into your game, or the t-shirt or the shirt ID, then you can do that. And options, these two are mainly for scripting, so I wouldn't touch these unless you're scripting. And this is the gravity, jump height, walk speed, and slope. So to explain these really quickly the best I can, jump power basically means how much power you have when jumping. Jump height is how many studs you can jump high. Studs are one of these. So one stud is like 1 foot, or well, so one stud is like 1 foot in Roblox terms. And so if you jump, like, let's say over here, 3 studs, then you would put 3 studs here. Currently, if you're able to jump over another player, Each player by default is 5 studs high, so 5 feet high, and you can jump 7. So normally in any other game, you can jump on people's heads, which means you're jumping higher than they are. Okay, so then you have walk speed. This is like one of the commands that people often use in admin scripts, where they make their self super fast, like the Flash or something. You walk really fast. Max slope angle. That one is basically if you're going up a wedge. You know what? I'll explain that a little later in another video because you have to see it to sort of understand it. I can't really explain it. I could, but it would take me a while. Okay, so we're gonna move on to okay, these two don't matter for right now. You have the same thing over here. Transform. I'm not really sure what that does. I've never actually used it. You have here, if you use the regular default Roblox tools, you can set the amount that you move. So like, if we move this, for example, it moves by 1 stud. But if we want to, we can set this to like 50 studs. And what it'll do is it'll move it by 50 studs. Sorry, I don't use Roblox tools too often. I use my plugin. So I'm going to unselect that, and I'm going to set that back to 1. And then, of course, you have the rotate in degrees. You have the import, materials, color, surface, lock. I wouldn't worry too much about surface. They're removing it soon, so I've heard. Union, negating, and separating we'll go over on the 3rd video when I explain my plugins, because one of the plugins I use actually goes with it, and so it'll be easier to explain there. Again, I don't use these. I don't use the welds, the constraints and all that. Here we have the effects. So if you want to, you can add fire, light, smoke, a trail, a beam, sparkles, or a particle emitter to your inside your parts. So like if we select this part and we go to model and then we go to fire, you can import fire. And then over here you have a spawn, so you can set a spawn where players will go. And then also in my 5th video, I'll go over just how to set teams. Because with spawns, you can set teams. Here you have advanced objects, and this is where you get a whole list of extra objects. Like lighting and mesh, different meshes and all that. So yeah, just the usual. And then over here you have model, so you can import a model from your computer files. Although we're not going to touch that right now. I have secret documents on my computer. Collision groups I don't use, but to sort of explain what I understand of it is that you can make, like, let's say you have this part here and these 2 parts, for example, right? And let's say you have this one part. Basically, if I understand it correctly, a collision group is so that the yellow part will pass through, but the red part won't. So if they're both unanchored, which I'll go over in a moment, actually no, I'll go over that in the next video, about anchoring, colliding, all that stuff. What I understand is that the yellow one will pass through, but the other one will stay on top. This also works for players and whatnot, so you can make certain players go through and certain players not. So then I think that's it for model. Service and run script and all this other stuff is for scripting. You're here for building, so we're just gonna skip that. Over here we have play here, and run. That doesn't really matter. Well, it does, but we're gonna go over that in the next video. Now here you have explore and properties. Now if you're looking to get into building, you are 100% going to use these. Explore and properties. This is all you do. You click them. By the way, your studio won't be like this. It'll be like this, where that tab is constantly there. To get rid of it, you just double click on one of the tabs. I prefer it that way. It gives me more room. So explore and properties. You also have the game explorer, the toolbox, tutorials, object browser, output, script analysis. Output and script analysis, plus command bar, breakpoints, call stack, watch, performance, and task scheduler, and all this other stuff is scripting, except for team create. Team Create is essentially a studio that you can work with other friends on. So when you have Team Create and you add a friend to it and they go into that Team Create, you'll see them floating around and whatnot, and you can see each other build stuff. So it's for like teams to basically create a game together. That's actually recent. They added that like last year, I think. Okay, so basically you skip all this other stuff. A script recovery, that's for scripts. Terrain editor, it's the same thing as the other tab. Here you can do the view selector. So up here you'll see that I have a view selector, and this basically lets you just pick a view and so on. I don't really use it too often. You can also go full screen. You can take a screenshot or record a video. You can also show grid, although the grid lags a bit. Well, the time that I used it, it lagged a bit. Now it's not lagging too much, but in larger games it does lag, and you can just check, you know, how big you want it, but I don't use it. And then grid material will turn every part into like one stud. Like what I mean is that it'll show you sort of a grid, as you can see here, and it'll display it on all parts. Here you have switch windows, but I don't really know what that's for. I'm guessing multiple windows, but I don't use it. And I don't use any of this stuff here, so I'm not going to mess with that. And here you find your plugins. So if you go to manage plugins over here, and let's close the Explorer and properties, if it'll load, hopefully it will. Nope, doesn't seem to. Okay, but basically here in Manage Plugins, you can install different plugins, and we'll go over that in a later video. Probably the third video when I explain the plugins I use. And yeah, so let's move on to how to make your own building kit. Because that's pretty much it for this. Aside from the workspace, this is where all your parts go, so you can select, like, say, the base plate, or you can select this part or whatever. You can also select the terrain. You can set the material colors here by just clicking on them, you know, changing their color. Watercolor, you can also change that. Its reflectance, its transparency, its wave size, and its wave speed. Again, it has a collision group ID, although I don't know how to use that. I never took time to learn it, so we're just going to skip over that. Camera, you can sort of mess with this, so you can make your zoom like very zoomed in. I mean, it's like crazy. 1 second. Okay, just had to clear my throat 1 second. Okay, so 70 is the default, and so like if you want to make yourself like super zoomed out, you can do that. So yeah, the max is 120, and yeah, it's super zoomed out. You might get dizzy after a while doing that. So over here we have players, nothing special. Lighting, you know, you can select different lighting. So right now we're on voxel, which is the default, but if we go to shadow map, you have realistic shadows, sort of, and then you get this new little thing called shadow softness, and you can select the softness or the hardness of the edges. We'll put it to extra soft. You can also do brightness, ambient, so you can turn it red. Outdoor ambient works about the same. You can turn it red or black or whatever. I'm going to set that back to dark. Here you can set the brightness of your workspace. So if you want to make it really bright, or if you want to make it very dark, you can. We'll leave it at 2. These two I don't really touch, but essentially what they are is... Well, actually, I have no idea. They used to work on the old lighting, but now they really have no purpose. I've never found a purpose for them. Legacy outlines, basically all they do is add outlines, as you can see on the edges. Hold on real quick, let me select this. You can see, but I don't use them, and I recommend you don't use them either. They're pretty much useless. Other than that, you have clock time, so if you want to set it to like 12 at night. Oh, actually, no, that's 12 in the morning. So if you want to set it to nighttime, you set it to 0, and it'll be nighttime. And then if you want to set it back to daytime, let's go back to 14, and there you go. Down here, geographical latitude, that's like, where you want to put the sun when it's that certain time. Then over here, time of day, it's pretty much the same thing as over here, except you're a little more precise. So over here, you're just able to set the hour. Over here, you're able to set the minutes and the seconds. So over here, if we put 1450, you'll see the sun moves a little bit. And so it's now 1450, which is 2:50 in the afternoon. So let's set that back to 14. Don't worry about archivable. I've never understood what archivable means in Roblox Studio. I've never researched what it does, but to my experience, if you leave it checked all the time, it really has no effect. Exposure compensation, you can set it to super bright. Sorry for anyone that's, or you can set it to super dark. Let's just set it to 1. Oh, wait, no, 0. Fog color, you can set the fog. So like, let's set green fog, and let's do fog and 800. And you can see that we now have green fog. Now here's a little trick about fog. Okay, so like, let's say we set this to 100, right? And so you have, you can see that the fog is right here. And it's like fog, it has a start and an end. But if you put this to like, say, 100, for example, you'll see that it ends there. And so then if you put it to 90, you'll see that it has a little bit of fog right there, and so on. And so if you set it to 70, you'll see that you have more fog, but then it ends right there. Hopefully you can grasp that idea. But see, that's where it starts and that's where it ends. So you won't see any fog here. It'll be like clear as day right where you're standing until the fog start. Fog start is around you, around the player. So that's not, or wherever your camera is, I should say. So we'll set that to 0, and we'll set this to 999, and back to white. Okay, so that's pretty much it for lighting. Replicated first and replicated storage, you don't really need to touch, as well as server script service, and that's pretty much it. Chat, localization service, test service, and sound service, you don't really need to touch either. Sound service is so you can add in sounds like that play in the actual world itself, but those don't really matter. I've never used it before. I've never found the need to use it. Server storage, scripters often use it for a lot of things, but you can also use it for building. So say you don't want something in the workspace, you can just cut and paste it and put it in there. Or another thing is that you can also click and drag items. So you can stick them in server storage and drag them back out into workspace. Aside from that, you have starter GUI. Those are for what you see on screen. Like this would be a GUI. Or when you go into any game, like a restaurant game, and they have a little store on the side and all that other stuff, that's basically what a GUI is. Starter pack is when you enter a game, and like I go back to the restaurant games, they usually have a menu that is in your toolbar, and that's what would be in the starter pack. They put a tool with a little GUI and a script in the starter pack. Starter player is again for scripting. It mainly contains local scripts. I know you don't know what a local script is, but if you want to learn scripting and what those mean, I know what they mean, but this is building, so not scripting. So like I said, you don't need to really touch these. Definitely not test service or localization service. I think mainly what these are is for... Okay, test service is to test the number of players in your game, and I guess the latency. And localization service is basically the language. So the languages you have in your game. But you don't really need to touch that unless you plan to make a big game that supports, Spanish, French, Chinese, Japanese, Russian, and so on. But other than that, let's go on to the toolkit. So here we're going to insert a part by right-clicking. I guess we can leave it at pink for now. And I'm just going to size my part. You can do this with the scale. But if you just continue, if you don't do this quite yet and you watch the rest of my videos, which I'm going to upload after this, like right after this and put it in a playlist, you can just go watch those videos and the third video I think, and I'll explain how, well actually no, it'll be my fourth video that I'll explain how this entire plugin works and how to use it to its best, Okay, so normally I have this at Smooth Plastic and Pearl, and then make sure to anchor it. So, oh, real quick, yes. So anchoring, I always forget this, but anchoring makes it so you're, actually no, watch the next video, but always remember to anchor your parts. Watch the next video and I'll go over anchoring, so you sort of understand. I'll go over anchoring, can collide, and some other stuff. Okay, so here, you know, everything is good here. You just make sure that it's anchored. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to make a wedge part. And then I'm going to make a truss part. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a corner wedge part. And what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to make a cylinder. And then what I'm going to do over here is do a mesh part. You can do this in any order you want, by the way, it doesn't matter. And then, yeah, here. And then toolbox, I'm going to search for an oval mesh. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this. I'm going to go to my Explorer, copy the mesh, I don't need this or the part itself. And then I'm going to paste into, and there we go, now I have my building kit. I probably missed something. No, actually, no, I didn't. So that's everything I use. A part, a wedge part, a truss part, and yeah. Let's just move these really quickly. Okay, so that's pretty much what I use. I use a part, wedge part, corner wedge part, cylinder, mesh part, and a ball mesh. Those are the ones I use the most. A truss part is basically like a ladder. They're ladders and they're sort of used for other stuff like nets, but they're mainly ladders. So you don't really need to use them. You're not going to use them in every building unless you're making a ladder game. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go on my next video. I'm going to show how anchoring, colliding, and yeah, I'm just gonna show off that, and then the third video will be my plugins. And then after my plugins on my fourth video, I'll show just this plugin because this plugin is sort of a lot to take in, and I need to sort of explain how everything works. Trust me, you're going to love it. Some people use F3X, which is another building plugin. It's a little more friendly, but it has too many UIs, and I don't like that. So yeah, that's it. Let's see. How long have I been recording? 28 minutes, 30 minutes. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around, and see you in the next one.